What made your ex the crazy ex? Hi guys, it's Em. Let's read some stories and try to decide if this is the stereotypical, oh, my ex is crazy, or if these exes are certified psychos. Also, a trigger warning that this video contains mention of self-harm, ending your life, and R-word. So please skip this video if these topics are not for you. Story 1. I left my ex to be because she attempted to end her life. I wasn't being heartless. I had proposed to her already and she was willing to give it all up. I stayed with her for a little while but couldn't shake the memory. So anyways, once I broke up with her, she ended up calling the cops and told them I beat her up. She put these bruises on herself and everything. If it weren't for my brother telling them that I'd been his presence the whole time post-breakup, I would have gone to jail. Screw her. Somebody commented. So I have a friend that is in a similar situation, but it's not working out legally. He's a serial dater, falls madly in love with a girl, they move in, and in 2 to 3 months, he breaks up with them. Gives me a new number, which he asked not to be given to anyone else, and says that chick was crazy. So at some level, he's not likely the nicest guy to date. However, this time, the girl shows up drunk after the breakup to collect her things. My friend has a roommate that answers the door, and the roommate, super nice guy, says something like, "You can't drive like this. I'll drive you home after, and you can call me in the morning to get your car." My friend comes down the stairs with a box of her stuff and holding a pair of heels that didn't fit in the box and hands it to her. They get in a verbal fight and she hits him in the face with the heels he just handed her. He asks the roommate to get her out of there and stomps upstairs. The roommate says something like, "Let me get my jacket," and goes to get it. Before he comes back, she peels out so that my friend and the roommate decide to call the cops. She's gonna kill someone with how drunk she is. They don't think anything about it until a few days later when the cops are at the door and put the cuffs on my friend. Apparently, she got in an accident a few miles down the road and claims she was trying to outrun her abusive ex-boyfriend that was chasing her down in his truck, and some of the injuries that my friend assumes were from the accident were from him beating her. He has a witness that none of this occurred, paid $5,000 to a lawyer. I honestly have no idea if that's a lot or not, but still has some domestic abuse charge with probation for the next 5 years. There's much more, but you get the picture. Somebody then commented to them, "Wow man, it's amazing how a girl can lie and say she's been beaten and how quick the guy gets screwed over. But if a guy gets his butt kicked, the cops don't do crap. I freaking hate cops." $5,000 is a reasonable price for a good lawyer, by the way. Just depends on the severity of the crime. Okay, so I want to take my response to this in bits. In regards to the original story, I do think OP was justified in feeling the way he did. Not because his ex tried to end her life, as I think OP needed to realize she was obviously dealing with something, and that didn't mean she didn't value their relationship. That being said, the fact she tried to frame him for something like that is very messed up. So I understand him calling her crazy. In terms of that last comment included from this post, I hate when people make generalizations about stuff like this. Lying is wrong and should never be done to hurt someone, and I do think it's messed up when male victims of domestic violence are not taken seriously. But I think this line of thinking leads to a lot of people's claims being thrown out the window because of these liars. I think all victims of domestic violence should be taken seriously, regardless of gender, and all of their cases should be looked at with empathy, while also focusing on trying to find the truth. Story 2. SWAT team standoff. Upside was getting to see the inside of the mobile command unit. That was pretty cool. Somebody commented their own story. So, my now ex-husband was the suicide threat type of guy. Once I left him, drugs, general crazy stuff, very controlling. He began calling me all the time, telling me he was standing on the top of a cliff waiting to jump, about to hurt himself another time. And finally, the night of the SWAT experience, he called me. Told me I'd find power of attorney paperwork on the desk of our former marital home, and his body in the garage. I was getting really worn out by these repeated threats and still didn't realize it was another method of control, and got scared, so I called the police. Police showed up at his house and he said the magic words, "Don't come in, I have a gun." I was picked up from my apartment. My 3-year-old and 8-year-old were babysat by a lovely police officer, while I was taken to my old neighborhood and asked to keep my ex-husband on the phone while they got their people into place. Now, this is apparently not a simple process, because I spent about 2.5 hours on the phone with a crazy man who was loudly cocking his rifle over and over and generally being insane. Finally, after a lockdown of a rather nice neighborhood, direct neighbors evacuated, they put me in a squad car while they moved to extract him from the house. Right about that time, I heard yelling, gunshots, and then, well, nothing. I wanted to leave the guy, but not necessarily this way. After a couple minutes, they brought him around to the ambulance that was right by the squad car I was in, hogtied. Still getting warm fuzzies over that mental picture. and screaming he was coming to kill me. Apparently, the non-lethal shot scored hits, but the several live rounds that were fired by the police missed. The detectives told me that he left our house to come kill me and our 2 kids, according to his rant while he was being interviewed later. So in short, abuse takes many forms, suicide threats being one of them. And if you end up punching your ex-husband one night after he was a bonehead to your kids, and you get arrested, sometimes the DA tells you he deserved it and drops the charges after looking at the SWAT night report. Story 3. I'll just leave you a bulleted list. 1. Faked a pregnancy and miscarriage to get more attention from me. This seems to be a popular thing for insane girls. 2. Accused me of R-word to her friends and told me that her male friends had R-worded her to see if I would do anything. 3. Used her self-harm as a weapon against me. Look what you did to me, kind of stuff. 4. Made Tumblr accounts to send herself hate mail and anonymously sent me messages posing as a different girl. She was hilariously bad at making it seem like a real human. Why are you dating that pathetic girl? Kick her to the curb and date a you hate, and other messages that sounded like a middle schooler was trying to be a caricature of a villain, and were obviously her. That woman will do anything for you and has a good taste in music, unlike her music that you tailored to things I had said. 5. Threatened to end herself if I left her, or if I didn't call her in an hour, or if I didn't show up to her house at 4 a.m. when I had work the next day, or for any reason really. After I broke it off with her, she came into my workplace and made a big show of having a panic attack when she saw me, and fell on the floor wailing until she was escorted out. This happened more than once, and loads of other BS emotional abuse over inconsequential stuff. Story 4. 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Loud knock on the door. Cops are there to arrest her. Won't tell me what it's about, and she's just standing there looking forward like a zombie as they cuff her. Find out the next day she was charged with felony larceny because she stole thousands of dollars from work like a year earlier and had been skipping all of her court dates. The police had been looking for her since her last court date but didn't know where she was since she was living with me, but had not changed her address or anything. Fast forward a bit and I end things with her. After she left, I went through the house and found around 75 empty 22-ounce cans and bottles hidden throughout the place. In shoeboxes, under laundry, under the bed, you name it. She'd been pretending to go to work during the day and then just staying in bed until I got home. When I'd get home, she would take my credit card and go to the store to get me a soda or whatever, but would always buy a 22 for herself that she would chug in the laundry room, I'm guessing, and then hide the evidence. I could literally go on for pages about all the insane stuff she did while we were together for 5 or so years. But this was pretty crazy and I'm losing my train of thought while writing this, so I'll leave it here. It took me a second to realize that the 22 ounces were probably alcohol, which is just my naive self being confused on why this girl was drinking so much soda and hiding in the laundry room. I hope OP didn't have any money stolen from them, because that was my next concern knowing this girl's past. Story 5. She wouldn't take the medication to control her bipolarness, anxiety, and depression. Somebody asked OP, "Oh my, why wouldn't she?" OP responded, "Many who suffer from bipolar disorder are high achievers and have trouble admitting there is something wrong, while many in all forms of depression make your own problem seem insignificant and unworthy of seeking help. Even after seeking help, the knowledge that you are on this medication for the rest of your life and there is no fixing you is a tough pill to swallow. My father didn't seek help for bipolar disorder until he was 35, with 2 kids, 2 divorces, and a mountain of trouble caused by the disorder. The thing that finally drove him to seek help was going bankrupt. My brother is 30 years old, quite obviously bipolar, and has yet to seek help. I was diagnosed during college after some emergency counseling, despite my suicidal thoughts and inability to leave my house on a daily basis. I'm hypomanic, not hypermanic, and with the diagnosis in hand, I didn't start taking medicine for about 5 years. It took losing a relationship I cared about very much. So why won't she take the medicine? I'm sure she has her own reasons, but for me it was the thought in my head that I was giving up on ever fixing myself. Edit. Even now my doctor makes a note in my file every time I tell her I feel like I've gotten better, that I don't need medicine, etc. Still happens about twice a year. Story 6. I finally get to tell this story. So after we dated for 2 years, this got rocky. She was both physically and emotionally abusive. We broke up and I never looked back. Like seriously. I moved out of the state. Anyway, my first week in this new state, I went out with some new friends and posted photos on Facebook. She then proceeds to try and add one of the girls I was with. A little crazy, right? Not only this, she'd call me every Friday night to make sure I wasn't out slutting it up with random girls. My life, man. But here's the big kicker. She backed off for almost 2 years. It looked like she was getting her life together. I came home to visit one of them here. She later invites me over for a movie and dinner. Turns out she was still the same person. I saw where this was going and decided to skip out on dinner. I went out to the balcony to call my buddy to pick me up. Big freaking mistake. She came out while I'm on the phone and she pushed me from the balcony to the second story. On the way down, my leg caught onto something and snapped. I had a shattered pelvis, which healed after a few months, as well as a messed up knee. I know OP got hurt, but honestly, those injuries might have been better than if OP had just fallen straight down. I know 2 stories don't seem like much, but you can fall at the wrong angle. You can break your back, neck, or smash your head, which can cause much more lasting injuries or even death. Story 7. Oh god. This girl I dated in Brooklyn ended up being my stalker girl. She's a model now. She was hot, so I asked her out. We hit it off, but it became apparent that she was just way too stupid to actually have a proper relationship with. We broke up, but she would still come around as if nothing happened. It was so crazy. She waited for me outside of the produce freezer for a good hour or 2, while I stood in there hiding from her when I worked in a supermarket. I ended up doing inventory. I got sick. I also worked in a deli at the time. She cornered me in the hottest, most humid place, the basement, that I ever had the displeasure of standing in for a good 2 or 3 hours. She waited. I had to lie and tell her the insurance won't allow her to come downstairs. Well, at the same deli she was coming in, and I had to hide in the bathroom. She stood out there waiting for me for at least 2 hours again. I fell asleep. This went on for quite some time before I finally had to get another girl that I knew to pose as my new girlfriend. Somebody commented, "Stop being such a hider." Story 8. I had a crazy ex-stalker. Never dated him. He was supremely obese and never showered. Whined and cried because no one liked him, even though everyone tried to be friends with him. He asked me out probably 20 to 30 times over 4 to 5 years. Always bought me Valentine's stuff, followed me around, asked me to group outings where no one else ever seemed to be, tried to buy me things I didn't want or need. Actually managed to get a girlfriend for a week and flaunted what a good boyfriend he was and how he provided for her, i.e. gave her all the money he has for drugs, smokes, clothes, etc. in a week. Tried to guilt trip me into giving him a chance, etc. Even though I told him to stop a lot. He finally gave up when I was about 4 to 6 months pregnant with my new husband's baby. Not because I was married, but because I was no longer good looking. He didn't want me anymore. But whenever we were around mutual friends, he would always bring up his imaginary girlfriend who looked just like me, acted like me, talked like me, everything. It was very creepy. He eventually moved away with his family and we never saw him anymore. Story 9. Ex broke into my parents' house drunk at around 3 a.m. My bedroom door is always locked, so she knocked pretty loudly until I woke up. I asked who it was and she whispered loudly asking to come in. I told her she was crazy and that I told her not to come to my house again. She started to cry and be really loud. I told her I was calling the cops. I wasn't, I just pretended to. So she got upset and said, "I'll call the cops too," and left. All of a sudden I see blue and red lights outside. I go to the window and she's sitting there talking to the cops. They could obviously tell she was drunk and that breaking into my house was illegal and that she should go home. She lived a block away. Too long, didn't read. Ex broke into my house drunk and called the cops on herself. I feel like unless OP and their parents said they didn't want to press charges, the cops should have arrested her and put her in jail for the night. Look, I get drunk too, but that's never been my excuse to break into someone's house. Story 10. Knew I was about to break up with her, so she faked being pregnant to prolong the relationship. I was convinced for 3 months when I was 18 and just going into college. She eventually had a miscarriage and we broke up shortly after. Didn't find out until almost 3 years later she was faking. I swear I lost 10 years off of my life because of the stress. Edit, I wasn't expecting this to go up as it did, but I couldn't press charges because she said that she would press charges. Basically saying that I was an intruder and she was defending herself. It was a slippery slope. I haven't spoken to her since. Edit 2, she didn't pay for my medical expenses or physical therapy. The whole time she insisted I was faking. Story 11. He was bipolar and I couldn't get past his violent mood swings. The next 2 days went as followed. He dropped out of school, but not before making a huge scene that got him escorted out. He took my best friend to the beach. They were also good friends, under the pretext of having a raging good get-over boo-diddle time. Instead, my best friend called me as he dangled off the 5th-story balcony, threatening to let go if I didn't take him back. He didn't do it even though I told him that his life was in his own hands, not mine, and that we would not be getting back together. He followed me around for a while from afar after that. His friends constantly told me how he called his new girlfriend by my name for years after. Story 12. Tried to stab me with a knife. Once yelled, "Help me," as loud as she could when I was playing a video game, and she wanted me to go to the store with her. The cops showed up and were ready to arrest me, expecting to find me beating her. Threatened to burn down my apartment if I went out to the bar with friends after work. Lied to me about her parents' death to gain sympathy and keep me from leaving her. Took a restraining order to get me to leave her alone. But the worst was finding out she was pregnant when we broke up. She put the kid up for adoption, and I only learned about it 3.5 years later. There's more, but it's making me sad. Geez, OP, I am so sorry you had to go through all of that. I hope the child's doing okay with another, more stable family. Honestly, that might have been the best thing for this kid, to just get a fresh start somewhere else without this would-be hell of a mother. Story 13. Well, I first noticed a little crazy while we were still dating, and that's why I broke up with her. Then the next day at school, she decides it's a great idea to poop in a brown bag, put it in my locker. She then goes around telling all her friends what she did. Once everyone told her what a terrible idea that was, she took the poo out of the locker and then threw it in the nearest trash bin. Of course, when the teachers caught word that someone pooped in my locker, they didn't think it was true, until they walked down the hallway and just inhaled the smell of poop. She was expelled immediately. That's how I found out my ex was crazy. Story 14. Lied about having cancer. Somebody commented, "I'm pretty sure my soon-to-be ex stepmother is doing this right now. Her and my dad are going through divorce, and now all of a sudden she has stage 4 thyroid cancer. But she's having heart trouble, so they can't do surgery. So they're gonna start radiation, and if it doesn't work, then she has 24 months to live. This woman is completely insane, and every word out of her mouth in the past has been a lie. Sure, she could have cancer, but I'm 99% certain she's making it up so my dad will give her sympathy. And if he doesn't, she can go around telling everyone, 'Oh, I have cancer,' and Opie's dad doesn't even care." Story 15. After we broke up, he bought me an engagement ring that I didn't accept. Tattooed my name on his chest. Bought me a $1,000 bumper for my Jeep. Then, when all that failed, he started bashing in my mailbox every night. Then parking around the corner and walking to my house to leave flowers in my Jeep. Every single night. Somebody asked, "Did you accept the bumper for the Jeep?" OP responded, "No, I didn't want him to have anything to hold against me. It was a nice bumper, though." Somebody said, "A wise decision, but man, Jeep parts." OP said, "I know, right? That was a harder decision than the ring." It's a good thing OP didn't accept the gifts, even if it was a nice bumper. I feel like when you give these kinds of people any in, whether it be monetary or emotional, they will take it and always use it against you. Better to stand firm and give them no ammo to use. Story 16. She'd stand outside my flat just staring at the window for hours. Longest was 3.5 hours, even in the rain. Somebody said, "I would have used a non-permanent marker and drawn funny things around her. I mean, a top hat, a cane, and a cigar. How could you not?" Somebody then said, "Took me a second to realize what you meant on the window." Had this image of someone going out there with a surprise closet full of theater props and dressing her up as Abraham Lincoln or something. Story 17. He faked a suicide attempt when I broke up with him to make me feel guilty. Then when I started seeing someone else a couple months later, he hacked, like legitimately, into my Facebook account and started stalking the person I was seeing, reading our private messages and saying incredibly threatening things. And this was just the crazy after we broke up. He was a mistake 150%. Story 18. She told me about a conversation she had with her aunt, who was in an abusive relationship. "Aunt, I love when he treats me like crap." Ex, me too. She then gets upset because I don't yell at her enough, and she called me a woman's anatomy for being too nice. Yeah, no thank you. Somebody commented, "Sounds like Lori from the Walking Dead show." She said that a few times about Rick. Story 19. Complete narcissist. Absolutely everything that ever happened had to revolve around her. Got to the point where she would make stuff up so it'd always be triggering. I know people with genuine problems. Hers were all psychosomatic. She brought them upon herself until she knew nothing but her own problems. In the end, I just gave up dealing with it. I did really like her though. I have a friend like this. Nearly anything I do is triggering to her, and she always complains if I do something that doesn't include her. Don't get me wrong. Anxiety is an incredibly real issue, but when someone uses it to get out on anything, I start to have a hard time believing them. Story 20. She took 5 bottles of sleeping pills, then told her mom I hit her, and then had her mom stab a knife through the other side of a door I was standing behind, and then took me to court for an EPO for domestic violence because I pushed her away, while she was punching my head repeatedly. Story 21. She used to kick and punch me every time an attractive girl was on TV, telling me that I was staring at them when I was just watching TV. Also searched my phone and computer because she was convinced that I was watching adult videos and or cheating. Story 22. Tried to talk me into hating my dad and never talking to him again because he didn't want to buy me a BMW when I was 18. Glad she's the crazy ex and not the crazy girlfriend. Somebody commented, lose contact with your own father for me. Hey, OP, I'm sure your family is pretty happy too that you seem to see through this girl's crazy and didn't let it ruin your relationship with your family. It always sucks when someone's ex did serious damage by making them disconnect from their friends and family. Story 23. Moved to another state without telling me. I came home to an empty apartment and actually thought for a minute that we were robbed. Was only able to get a hold of him the next day and thought we were still together. Story 24. Made me support her and her 3 children for a year and a half while she stole all my money. She ended up stealing my car, forging checks, and wiping out my bank account. Plus, bonus, she gave me syphilis. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.